The book of Acts is called Acts because it's about the actions of the apostles. So, after Christ spent 40 days and 40 nights with the apostles after he rose, he left them. He left the Holy Spirit with them, the Helper, and it was now up to them to carry the torch for Christ, to proselytize, um, to cast out demons, to heal people, and the apostles did all those things. But the apostles were all humans. They were all people. They weren't. They had the Holy Spirit, but they weren't flawless. They weren't perfect, and there is going to be disagreements. So I think it's in the middle of Acts. I think it's Acts 15. Um, Paul and Barnabas, who they were close. They risked life and limb together. They went through a lot together, but they had a major disagreement, and they had a bit of a falling out over what's his name, John Mark. Um, Barnabas wanted to take him with him and Paul, and go on a ministry together. Paul didn't want to do that because John Mark previously abandoned them, and when they were in a city trying to spread the gospel, and Paul didn't like that, and so he's going, we need people who are dedicated, zealous, and we need the best of the best who are going to be traveling from town to town. Traveling was not easy back then. And so you needed someone that you could depend on, that you could rely on. Paul didn't think John Mark, at this point, was that kind of guy. Barnabas vehemently disagreed. So they had a big disagreement, and they ended up going their separate ways. I don't think we really appreciate, because the Bible is so succinct and so brief on some things that it's hard for us to really unpack it and really understand what it means. For example, when Christ was being flogged, it's very brief, and it's just like, oh, and he was flogged. The Bible doesn't tell you what flogging actually is, or how horrendous it is. So flogging it's basically a whip with a bunch of different leather straps at the end of it, and at the end of these leather straps are hooks, and they would dig into your flesh and just carve furrows. It's usually on the back, and these lashings, these floggings would be so bad that by the end of however many lashes that someone was sentenced to, you could see their ribs through their back. Okay, so flogging is horrendous, but it's very easy to gloss over because the Bible is very brief and just very quickly moves on. So likewise, with Paul and Barnabas' split, I don't think we really appreciate how significant that was, especially for the two people involved. But what happened is, because these were men of God, and these were humble men, they did not allow that to fracture the message, the mission. Instead, one ministry turned into two ministries. So there was a blessing that came out, but it required both parties to handle their disagreement with humility, with love, and with patience. So disagreements are going to happen with everyone. It is up to us, to the degree that we take that disagreement, how far we want to take that. Is it worth destroying everything that you have built up to this point? Very seldom it is. Very seldom. Unless they have done something horrendous, unforgivable, think of like a crime or something like that. But if it's just a disagreement, is that really worth blowing everything up over because you won't humble yourself? And I'm talking to everybody, I'm talking including to myself. I hold myself to this standard as well. And if I don't, you are free to call me out. But we're going to have disagreements, but it is our responsibility to manage the aftermath and how big we want it to go. If we are just unable to, for whatever reason, address conflicts like an adult that doesn't just degenerate into a shouting, swearing match, I think that would do us a lot of good. So I would encourage all of you, please read Acts 15. And I forget exactly where in Acts 15 it talks about Paul and Barnabas, but you'll find it. And just really reflect over how these two godly men resolved, or maybe they didn't resolve, maybe they just postponed it. You know, it doesn't need to be a big issue right now. We'll deal with it later once the mission is over. Maybe we have to take that approach. But it's up to us to manage our responses, right? And rather than being quick to dismiss or to rescind any connection or friendship with that person over a disagreement, I think that's a bit high school. That's we're all adults, and we should be capable of a level of humility where we can handle a disagreement. And maybe you think I'm trivializing whatever you believe to be going on. Maybe you think I'm trivializing it. But I mean, if it's not a matter of life and death, if the person didn't steal from you, if they didn't, physically harm you, shouting and screaming is useful very little of the time. I would say shouting and screaming is very useful when someone is dying. They're on the street, they're bleeding out. Yeah, screaming, yell, and swear. Oh, yeah, because the person needs help. But that's not what's going on. So I would like to see a bit more managed responses, a bit more humility, and a bit more adulthood. We should be able to overcome these things because they're never going to stop. So if it's tripping you up right now, it's always going to trip you up. It's always going to stumble you. And it's your choice what you choose to stumble over. The power is purely in your hands. No one can control how you behave and the words that you say. That comes from you. Yeah, that's really what I wanted to say. It was disappointing to me last night that so few were... Well, no. Let me rephrase that. There was only a few people that could not keep... they couldn't keep themselves from having to interject. They can't wait their turn to speak. They feel like they are so justified in screaming and yelling at everyone else's expense when it's not only about you. There was a lot of other people in those spaces, and we didn't even get through half of them, and I wanted to hear from everybody. That was a goal. I didn't think we'd meet it, and we didn't. But when you think that your grievance is so much bigger than everyone else's, well, guess what? Everyone thinks that what they're going through is the biggest deal. It's not just you. None of us are unique in that. So if there's a message that I want to impart, it's we're going to have disagreements, but you can't let it explode. That's just not going to work. It's going to harm everyone involved, even people who aren't even trying to be involved. It'll affect them somehow. And ultimately, it's very selfish. thinking that what you're going through is the most important. Everyone has things going on. Everyone. And to not humble ourselves, we're not going to get anywhere. We're going to be a wheel spinning in the mud. So I would like to avoid that if we could. Please read Acts 15 if you can, and really pray on it, and really ask yourself, how do I want to treat others if I am watching a video of myself? I want to see myself as someone that I look up to. So I'm going to try and be as cordial and as understanding as I can in the moment, so that when I look back at myself, I can say, yeah, I handled myself very well. I'm actually proud of the person that I'm seeing. That's a great feeling. I don't want anyone to be robbed of that feeling. So be the person that you want to see in a video. Pretend you're watching somebody else. And really pay attention to the things that you say and what you do. When you hear yourself, does it make you feel good? Or does it make you go, oh, I shouldn't have said that? And if you need to take time to cool off before you do say anything, guess what? That's your responsibility. That's no one else's responsibility, because you are responsible for how you react. It's a choice. So I would really like us to handle conflict more maturely and more spiritually. Yeah, I'm just repeating myself, so I'm going to stop. Thank you.